and the strap can go over there. So, in the off position, the camera is off. When it is in the test position, you can set the parameters in the menu, and when it is in the on position, the camera will count down, and then after 5 seconds, start capturing images. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds fairly straightforward. Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Barnaby and today we're going to be talking about trail cams and where best to place them. This is something that I've wanted to explore for such a long time, but I just never have. So this video is to help me help you to avoid the same mistakes that I made the first time. I bought a Victure HC200 trail cam off of Amazon for about £45. It features 1080p video and 60 megapixel stills. Ideally I would want a 4K capable camera, but for the price I did want to see how the cheaper model held up. Now one of the biggest aspects of trying out a trail cam for me personally is the infrared night vision mode. So I recorded this outside my window a few nights ago, and have a listen, tell me that you wouldn't have bought a trail cam too. So you get the idea, and obviously I have no idea where these animals were, which makes choosing the location one of the most important factors of placing a successful trail camera. So trying to find a spot for a trail cam is actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Now, for my first attempt, I was probably a little bit too ambitious. I wanted to try and capture woodcock feeding, and I have seen woodcock many times in the woodlands, but generally only for a split second when I accidentally startled them. But I found a clearing in the woods where I'd seen the birds before, so I thought that would be a really good place to start. Now, did I get any woodcock on the trail camera? Of course not. At least not yet. But animal tracks and signs of activity are key to figuring out where exactly you're going to place your camera. So it is worth doing a little bit of research on the species that you're hoping to try and find to figure out what you need to look for. Things like scat, footprints, that kind of thing. Once you have your location, you do need to find an adequate tree or branch to mount your camera to. Now, this did prove somewhat difficult as the only upright trees in the clearing were huge and the strap, while a generous length, was far too short to go round them. In the end, I attached it to a fallen branch much closer to the floor. Now, the field of view is pretty decent on most models, but I did a quick field test of what can only be described as Bigfoot eating some berries, just to see how big I was in the frame. Now I would advise doing a field test and review the footage to make sure you're happy with your placement before leaving the camera. But once you are, walking away is the second hardest part. It was difficult to leave nearly 50 quid in the woods unattended, let alone multiple cameras or a more expensive model, so it is really worth putting it somewhere discreet. So the hardest part in my opinion is definitely the waiting. Within about an hour of leaving the trail cam, I had already talked myself out of going to check it twice. Absolutely ridiculous, I know. But in the end I did eventually stick to my plan and leave the camera set up for about 5 days before disturbing the site again. The camera trap is still there, which is brilliant. So we're just going to make our way across the log now and see if we've got anything on the camera trap. So wish me luck. Oh, I don't like this bit. Now, don't get your hopes up. If your first few times aren't successful, don't be disheartened. It will probably take months of practice and patience, as with anything, to get a decent clip, not to mention luck. But if you do want to see results quickly, try to pick an easier target than woodcock. Seriously. Now, after I reviewed the footage from my first placement, I was made aware of some mistakes that I'd made. Now, mistake number one was that there were a lot of dried leaves on the floor in front of the camera. So I had about 50 clips, the vast majority of them being leaves doing this in the wind. Fairly obvious mistake, I know, so it's worth making sure you don't have any leaves or branches or tall plants in the field of view that might trigger your motion sensor. Mistake number two was sticking the camera below the dew point. This was an error I probably should have realised, but didn't. and in hindsight I don't think it's an obvious mistake, but one to definitely consider. So to avoid this, it's best to mount the camera high enough off the ground or on a tree or similar to bring it out of the dew zone. Unfortunately, most of the clips I got with anything interesting happening were ruined by droplets of water over the lens. But at the end of the day, mistakes are there to be made and learnt from, and it is all a learning curve. Afterwards I went back to the woods and chose a different location using what I had learnt from my previous attempt. After 3 days I had virtually no footage and was really beginning to question whether I should just stick the camera in the driveway. For the next few days the cam sat on my desk staring at the ceiling until last night I really randomly decided to just go and stick it on a tree in the driveway at about 7 PM. Now I checked it this morning out of curiosity and I was in luck. Check this out. This handsome badger was looking for food amongst the daffodils, followed by a cheeky fox. The only issue with having it in the driveway was that I also caught the postman and my cat. A small price to pay though to see who visits in the night. This relatively cheap camera for the most part is really easy to use, it's fairly good quality for the price, but more than that it can provide you with an insight to a world that you don't normally see, a world that's right on your doorstep. So if you liked the video guys, drop me a thumbs up, let me know what you've seen on your own trail cams in the comments, and if the wildlife around you is something that you are interested in and passionate about, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching guys, until next time.